Our guest today is Kevin Lyman. I would hazard a guess that most of you know something that he's done. Kevin Lyman owns a production company that puts on annual festivals like the Warped Tour and Country Throwdown. In '94, the Warped Tour started when Kevin had already been with Lollapalooza a few years. He put a bunch of SoCal punk and ska bands together, including Sublime and No Doubt, on a bus and went on tour. He wasn't sure if he was going to do it again in 1995, but he was approached by Vans, the shoe company, to put together a skate festival. So he saw a connection, he jumped at the chance to put the idea together into the Vans Warped Tour, leading what is now the longest running annual tour in North America, the Vans Warped Tour. And it is an international tour as well. Kevin's also part owner of Side One Dummy Records, which is an LA-based indie record label. And Kevin got involved in Side One in the late 90s when he decided to put out a compilation CD comprised of the bands of that year's Warped Tour. So please join me in welcoming Kevin Lyman.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Well, if you don't mind, because these are largely music industry students, it would be really helpful if we could start with your personal history and your own path into the business of live music from what I know was your beginnings in like Vision Skate Escape and Holiday Habit.
It really began, when I was in college. Right. Just like you guys in school, people talking about local bands. I went to school at Cal Poly Pomona, which was east of LA, about an hour. Yep. And got to get there with a bunch of like-minded guys, really, and girls, and that we just loved punk rock music. And we would drive in and out of LA and go watch bands at the Roxy and Whiskey, and then we started realizing, let's do some shows on campus. Right. And it was a unique group of guys. When you look at it back in history, it was Ron Coleman from SST Records, Paul Tollett, who went on to do Coachella. Yep. We just had a love of music. I really didn't know why I was in school, ultimately. I think a lot of people go to college, and you have a set path, and you think you're going to get a degree and go get a job. I was there mostly for almost a socialization thing. I got a degree in recreation administration, and that just allowed me to kind of hang out at the pool most of the time.
Look how much recreation you're administering now.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically learn how to run a summer camp, and a lot of the things I use. But really, I started organizing shows on campus. I needed to raise funds for a ski team. I was on the ski team, and it was easy to access bands from LA and give them a place to play. Yeah. So I started getting a broad background, and really didn't know, but it was that thread of music. I realized I fell in love with the live show. Yeah, yep. So we can't really talk about studio here because I'm a very impatient person of the studio. I'm all about the live performance.
Yeah. Which if done right, the studio captures. But because live is where the magic happens, right?
It's some people in the studio, but for me it was always just about the emotion of live music, and that's what I've always been about.
So, but you started organizing shows, like live shows, like the skate shows.
Before skate shows, I used to do it was at frat parties. We'd rent a frat house and pay a frat $5 for 5 bands, all the beer you can drink, and bail out the backyard when the cops came and come back and pay the frat. It hasn't changed much, I don't think. And, but I kind of grew into that. It was this lifestyle of skateboarding and music. It was a culture I grew up with in Southern California, and I'd already worked. I went away to Hawaii and worked at a weight loss camp for girls. The motto was kind of lose weight, get a date, get a tan, get a man. It wasn't really, it was just my whole life, I still really didn't know, but it was this live music thing, and I came back to LA, and that's right when the punk scene was really starting, punk scene and working around that alternative scene, and we were doing all the shows no one else wanted to do, and getting a job, and they paid cash, so it was an easy transition to go find myself.
So what year was that?
That was about 1984, 85. I'd just gotten out of school.
That's when I was there. I worked at Club Lingerie during that time.
Yeah, Lingerie with Brendan Mullen, who passed away. We know Brendan, and it was this time with Golden Voice. Gary Tovar ran Golden Voice, and I kind of stepped in, and it was really a strange time because a lot of that punk rock scene was kind of ruled by the fist, and I was one of those rare guys who had that college education that could read. I mean, that was pretty much my first qualification in music. I started looking at contracts, and the band started to grow throughout California, and I kind of grew along with them. Till 1991 when Lollapalooza started. That was my first tour. The bands like Jane's Addiction and Nine Inch Nails, and that all came to me, and they wanted to bring a guy that I built those and I took care of people. It's not hard to take people, it was building those relationships. It took a long time. And then in 94, I was pretty much thought it was maybe time to move on.
Yep.
Because I didn't really ever want to become that guy. Those people that you go to shows, and I'm sure all of you have been to shows, and you go to the club and there's someone totally bumming your night out. You know, the doorman, the security guard, the sound man. Yep. And I never wanted to become that person. Yeah. So I rallied up, I had an idea. I'd been doing these skateboarding, mixing music. I get the Chili Peppers to play on top of a ramp for $250. And you pay that much for a ticket now for one, you know. Yeah, but, you know, we'd sit on top of the ramp and, you know, I'd do these shows and I thought one last time maybe go out on the road with some friends and do a tour. And then I was hopefully going to go maybe be a school teacher. And that was in 1995 was the first time we went out on the road with the Warped Tour. Right. And it was actually the Warped Tour before. And then we went out and it wasn't successful, but success was kind of based on, you know, a lot of people ask me and I go, it was having that ability to fail. Right. Right. That ability to fail came from the hard work. I'd worked over 320 nights a year. We probably met in the side hallway. Yeah. You were probably working for a label, and I was the guy on the, you know, running the shows at the Palace, Palladium, Whiskey Rocks. So many of the venues. But it was like building that time and biding my time to be able to go out. And enough people saw what I was trying to do. Yeah, that you wouldn't be marked by a failure. It would just be a moment. It was a moment failure. Yeah. You know, and it was a tricky time because, you know, I grew up in that time where it was corporate America was all that. But I also started to realize that we were supporting them in a lot of ways. We were wearing their clothes. We were buying their, you know, stuff from them. So when that opportunity after that first year, some bands like Pennywise and No Effect, some of these bands that brought a little credibility from that world that I worked in. But I was just the guy who loaded the trucks. I wasn't really a musician putting on a festival. Agreed to come on board. And there was that time where you almost make that tactical mistake in life. I was trying to get it, and someone came to me and said, I was broke and I needed to get on. And they said, you know, I have a friend at Calvin Klein. And would they be a great sponsor for the Warped Tour? I don't think Calvin Klein Warped Tour would have related. Would that have worked with Pennywise and No Effects? And I got this brief moment. I got a call while they were stuck in New York at this meeting that Vans was looking for someone to help them with their amateur skate contest. Wow. And you know, when you just have to throw it all out on the line, I was back working in the clubs, and I got 15 minutes with the CEO of Vans, and I realized he was trying to hire me to go to work, not around I thought he wanted to get involved with my festival, and I had to kind of, you know, that thing where it's confidence, cocky, just go for it. And I convinced him and became the Vans Warped Tour in 1996. That's great. And to know what was a good fit and what wasn't a good fit is just to know your own core values, to know what you're about. Yeah, right? You know, and you know, it's, you know, that's that thing, and it was that time, you know, but sometimes, you know, almost made a very big, and we wouldn't be sitting here, you know. 20 years later, if it had become the Calvin Klein Warped Tour. Right. It would have been a sad moment. You know, I think that you have a somewhat unique reputation for fairness and also for wanting to create experiences rather than simply ticketed music events. What helped form your own value system in this business? Like, you know, everything from deciding against Calvin Klein and seeing the fit that Vans would have been to, like, you know, the Warped Eco Initiative and things like that. Well, you know, it was, you know, there was a strange time. I grew up in a town called Claremont that was kind of a hippie town a little bit. You lived out in LA, but there was like, and I started realizing that punks and hippies were pretty close. You know, the punks hated me for saying that, but we all had these values about change. Right. And we were trying to change the music scene, and we were trying to bring value to the fans even back then. I mean, those shows at the Olympic Auditorium where we'd print the T-shirts with the screen printer in the back and move on, and we'd always try to team up and do unique shows. And I learned that from a guy named Gary Tovar. He was a great example. But I also, on the other side, learned, and he was the punk guy, but Bill Graham, you know, I was lucky enough to sell egg rolls in the Grateful Dead parking lot. Wow. And that was a way we put ourselves, made some money. We'd make egg rolls, and then we'd turn them into apple pies at night. Because people late at night like, you know, sweet food at bed shows. So, but I'd watch those two and how they delivered special things to the fans. Right. And so it was kind of blending that kind of the hippie influences with the punk ethos. And I think I kind of grew up in that world where, you know, while I'm here and lucky to be in the position I am now with these festivals, that you can integrate, you know, that nonprofits are just as important. And we talked about the blood drive. I just heard about this blood drive. You know, we have the largest independent blood drive that a lot of people don't know, tied in with our the Warped Tour with Music Saves Lives. We do 60,000 pints of blood. We do canned food drives. But I always believe that people are, when they're having fun, are more willing to open their minds.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are just coming to run around in the sun and see music, but if you can capture 10% of those people, and some of these organizations that we help start, like Keep Abreast, To Write Love on Their Arms, and some of these organizations that make sense, if they're having a good time, your mind opens up.
Yeah.
And so many kids aren't having a good time in high school, I realize. You know, the stresses of being bullied, the stresses of just the environment. But if I can create this music, through music, a place, I've now created my ultimate goal of being a school teacher again.
Yeah.
And maybe the largest class in America. Where we have 500,000 kids coming to Warped Tour, and you hope that 10% of them walk out back into their communities.
Yeah.
So getting emails a lot during the winter time right now has been really fun. Everyone has my email address. Give it to you. It's kevinwarped@aol.com. I know AOL account shows how old I am, but people know how to reach me. And it's nice to get those letters that kids have been throwing basement parties where the admission is 3 cans of food to get on a Friday night.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just take it back that way. So, you know, and I don't like to say I'm in the music business anymore. It's grown into the people business. It's a lifestyle business.
Right. Absolutely. And you know, people are so receptive when they're having a good time. You know, they're open, they're primed, and when they connect with an idea that resonates with them.
90% are just having a good, but if that 10% want to walk out, you know, you've now got 50,000 kids back in the community that can take a solid, because our music business now, that moment, you know, I grew up around that crazy time in LA where some people were becoming super personally enriched. You know, and I've always said there's going to be more people making a living in the music business. Right. A living. Because we were based on a business of 90% failure.
That's right.
You know,
and that's a huge way that the business changed, and we're going to talk about that.
It's just we're being held accountable now. And there's so many more opportunities out there. But I witnessed all that. I never understood why guys are getting paid $250,000 a year to go to lunch. And that was an A&R guy. You know, they'd come down to the shows, and what do? They go, I go to lunch with bands as I'm loading trucks and everything. I knew that model, for some reason, it always struck me that model was not sustainable, maybe?
Well, it was a house of cards, right? It was just way too big and way too porky. And
it was, and then just ignoring technology. I was managing Less Than Jake at that moment in time, and became friends with the guys who ran Napster. Where everyone, that was an evil word, and I became friends with them and tried to get Roy Lott to release a Less Than Jake single on Napster, and he told me we will never allow the digital distribution of music. And I'll never remember walking out and said it's done.
It's over.
And now it's just being rebuilt in a really cool way. You know, and there's so many, there are opportunities out there. For
and the opportunity missed by the record industry at that moment, where in 1997, 1998, they could have embraced MP3 technology. They could have gotten all this out of the way then, and they would have, you know, it would have been a little bit painful, and it would have been.
When he told me that we're never going to allow this, and every kid I'd run across was already trading files.
Of course.
I said, it's too late. And, you know, if we had just developed that and people had just stepped back, but they resisted change so much, that could have been, you know, Apple just, you know, technology walked in and took the lead, and everyone's been playing catch up since.
I mean, I remember I was at the first ever MP3 summit in San Diego, and there wasn't one label person there. Geiger ran a panel that I was on with a couple of other people, and there was nobody from the label acknowledging this unbelievable tool that we had. I remember one night thinking, there's got to be something that we can do with MP3s that will make our fans' lives happier and better and be good for us. And you know, what we ended up doing was finding a way to create a subscription program.
We ultimately, we devalued music down to nothing. And now, you know, it's our task and all of us to bring some value back to it so artists can support themselves and carry on their craft. But once you devalued it to zero, and we bred a culture, we didn't give them an option. You know, basically, and it's a strong term. We bred a culture of thievery, but we didn't give them an option. And then when we came up with that option, we've had to slowly rebuild the value back to music. And I think there's a lot of smart labels and managers, especially in the world I live in, that are reestablishing that. So we're kind of getting the world back on balance a little.
Well, I think that, you know, when you make when you want to sell recorded music, you better be thinking in innovative terms. You have to be able to think about what's worth keeping, what's worth.
You know, so I spend a lot of time. That's really fun for me now, sitting with artists and trying to help them reestablish their office. The ones who were signed to major labels have all been dropped. The bands that are starting out, the bands that have been around, trying to redevelop their business model. And it usually means that, you know what, they're going to have a house over their head. They're going to save a little money. They can go on tour a little bit, but you have to be much more creative.
Well, I'm sorry for looking down at my notes, but there was something in here that I wanted to talk to you about that you just struck on, which is the way that artists, in my opinion, are reestablishing these connections with their fans is by building trust, which is something that I think you've been good at in the live realm. I think that people who buy tickets to your events trust you, and I think you've put yourself out there in some instances where you've had to sort of say, I don't know what went wrong, or I don't know what's going wrong. You got to consider canceling a show or explaining something. You're an open book.
Yeah, I believe that it's better to just be that way. There's no reason to hide stuff.
Well, nothing's hideable.
Nothing's hideable, and I think the reason I've been allowed to survive, and I spent a lot of time with and they say is one thing, Kevin, you never took advantage of the punk rock scene.
Yeah.
I've been able to figure out how to make a living within it, but never take advantage of it.
Right.
So it was kind of when I went over to the metal world, because I was wondering why they didn't have their own Warped Tour.
Right.
And all the metal bands were trying to play on Warped Tour. That's where we created Mayhem.
Right.
It was trying to create a world, and they embraced us. We embraced the people involved in it. We built this culture. So we're allowed to be in that space.
Right.
Right. I've attempted that in country. I've run up against different roadblocks. Mm-hmm. I'm proud that festival, we did it. But there's that old model still that just holding on up there in Nashville. Right. It'll be gone in another couple of years, and those opportunities for independent artists is going to be there.
Well, it's just lagging the main record business.
And I always tell anyone, and I think I should probably be on the Chamber of Commerce of Nashville right now, because if anyone wants to get into this business right now, I'd be packing your bags and heading to Nashville. And now it's not just country; it's all music. There's so many opportunities, and the bridge of technology and music is coming on, and you've got the 10% of that town that's still holding on, but they're all going to be gone in 5 years, and it's going to be a really, really amazing. It's going to be that amazing place that LA used to be.
Where things
going
are
up in
born,
music. But LA is not the place. In New York, it's just unaffordable to live there anymore.
Right. And I think that's exactly it. I think we're at this time of change where, in so many parts of our world, we're waiting for the old people to die off. The people who have the old model.
I try to be nice to all the young ones, so maybe they'll let me hang out a little longer. Do it a little longer. I still love being around it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's old guys as much as old ideas, and that's really the issue. I think that I'd be interested in hearing your overall view of the touring business today. Like, for a while we were looking for rock bottom. When we were going to hit rock bottom. How do you build something in this business? Well,
I think right now, if I was in 22, 23 years old in the business and I was looking to go into it, we're involved in multiple festivals. We were slightly involved with Buku this weekend. We brought one of our partners and sponsors down here to help them out or be part of the festival. I said, there's a whole niche of people that are going from festival to festival to festival. Finding unique jobs within that they can go. It's almost like being on tour, but you're working for different people every weekend.
Well, we're talking about social media management.
A few years ago, it used to be you needed someone to do your online. Then there was social media managers, and now and then there's the branding sponsorship side. I know a lot of times people don't understand, but really in '95 when we started doing these partners on Warped Tour, it became a little niche, a cottage industry of kids that live the lifestyle. You could have tattoos, you could have piercings, you can have colored hair, and represent the brand, because I used to call them golf shirt people. Said you can't have golf shirt people coming and representing a brand to my fans. You have to build a trust with those people. So we kind of built a whole cottage industry of people that go out and represent brands around the country and around the world. And now I'm just looking at this festival niche. There's there's so many. There's a shortage of people that know how to work at festivals. That are specializing in it. I had a discussion with the guys this weekend, and they're asking, do you have any production, man? People are asking me if I'm interested in coming back and doing site coordination. I really am not right now, but it would take too much time away. But there's a shortage of people that are really understanding how to run these festivals. I talked to, they said there's 800 festivals in North America that will have a budget of over $100,000 in talent.
Unbelievable.
So if you think about that, whatever type of music it is or anything, so I think that's growing. The indie record labels that have pulled through. In my world, it's Rise and Hopeless and Fearless and even Side One, Dummy. We had a discussion this morning. I was out with Flogging Molly last night, who was with our label before recently, and how those labels have figured out how to make it work.
Yeah.
They're making the deals, and I'm really proud to see bands like The Used and Taking Back Sunday, who I had to kind of force to come back and work with me on Warped Tour. And then they came back and they signed deals, and now they're getting royalty checks that they would never have gotten on the major label. So now they can say no to a tour once in a while. Because bands were on the road too much.
We've talked about that.
They were being beaten to death on the road. They were beating, you can't only play a market so often. And now maybe they're going to start getting checks from those labels so they can look at it and say, you know what? Let's stay home. Let's have a little bit of a life at home. We don't have to go do that same run of 26 cities or something again.
Because that's a grueling lifestyle, number one. Number two, it's hazardous. And I think it's overall bad.
Yeah, it's hazardous, and the finances. It's expensive to tour. There's a finite dollars in the marketplace for kids to go to shows. They're making choices all the time. And if someone's just been through in 3 or 4 months, and they come right back through, a lot of times you're going to choose, well, I haven't seen that, I'm going to spend my money there.
Right, exactly. So, well, then back to this idea of like how these things, how you build something in this business, because I think that's something that you've done. You've built things by creating these circles of trust.
It's very important with kids. I mean, with fans, and I realized that I had to step back from my personal musical tastes. If I was still doing the bands, you'd always be like, it'd be the NoFX and Bad Religion and Pennywise and Specials, but realizing that that demographic isn't really necessarily want to come into a parking lot for 9 hours and have a band called Pierce the Veil playing next there. And the artists don't want to do it either, because Jay Bentley from Bad Religion came up to me one day and goes, "Who's A Day to Remember?" Like, why are they bigger than us? So it's really, at this point, it's really easy with Warped Tour because I'm just curating it through the fans' input. By having that connection, it's nice for us because we can go online and, ask people, who do you want to see on the tour? And in 5 days now, through SurveyMonkey and some of these tools we have, 150,000 kids give us their 5 top choices. I still go on every show, and I have the old school method of standing out in the line and helping get kids in, and looking at what shirt they're wearing, which usually tells me who I should book next summer. But I know that if I book 7, out of the 35 top bands, and I can tell you pretty much every year close to who they're going to be, if I book 17 of them, that other 63 bands is pretty much me curating. I can bring influences of all types of music, and try to bring things to kids that they may not know, but if they're in a festival, it gets real fun.
Well, on the business side of the table, then, how do you deal with things like inter band issues? Bands that conflict with other bands. You guys, you've got a lot of people in kind of a crowded environment.
It's like I don't have time for them. I always say, if you're going to have a bad attitude, don't come, because 95% of the people on my tour are having the best time they possibly can. They're getting to tour with other artists. They're making friends. When you're on a normal tour and you're living in one tour bus, things, habits, whatever it is, can wear and tear on everyone.
One small annoying thing gets pretty annoying.
And for 9 weeks on the Warped Tour, you are in a free-flowing, controlled chaos. I like controlled chaos. And you can go hang out and do this. So the inter-band things, they like to blow them up on social media now. They're pretty minimal, really are. They make for great stories, So the bands have more fun with them. Fat Mike torturing Under Oath for their religious beliefs and this and that, and then they show up the next time they're together with T-shirts. Fat Mike's, or I don't know, Under Oath likes green dinosaurs or something. It was like just this. But that tends to get blown up. But we really don't have it out there. I don't have a lot of patience. I never did. So even when I knew I had to figure out my niche in the music business to be there. I worked on big tours. I was going in the direction. I would be doing the Rolling Stones now. I would be doing that. But then people start getting that they're, when all they start worrying about is where's my pizza, and do I have a towel, and the bathroom. Touring gets monotonous. And a lot of people that go on tours like that monotony of being on tour. They like the road case, the guitar rack right there. If it's not there, it throws their whole day off. But you need those kind of people. You need on that type of tour. My tour, I like it every day, and if it starts to get too mundane, I try to throw a wrench into the show, just to mess them up.
Well, you obviously surround yourself with people who are aligned with you in that way, right?
I actually surround myself with very organized, very detail-oriented people. I'm a very broad stroke.
Yeah.
Vision, but I have a lot of I need those great people that are those great soldiers.
Yeah, but that's my point. Yeah. It's like a first who, then what approach. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't have to be a person who fits in a box. No. It has to be like the guy. That person's the one for.
And people come back, and people love coming back that go on these other tours just to have a little excitement of Warped Tour.
Like a break.
So we don't have it's hard. I wish we had more turnover.
Yeah.
It took me many years to agree to do this TV show we have, this Warped Roadies TV show.
I was going to ask you about that because so many of our kids are interested in production, and there's this Warped Roadies TV show, which is about the production side of the business.
Yeah, it was, we'd bounce this idea around, and I'm careful of what we do with this brand and where we're at, and then I got with the right production company, McGill, out of New York.
Right.
I was lucky enough to go on a tour of the Gator Farm yesterday that did Swamp People, so they also shot Swamp People, one of my favorite shows. And it was I was comfortable with them.
Right.
I was comfortable that it was going to air on Fuse Network, which has been a partner of mine.
Lined up
really well.
Yep.
And now, everyone goes, well, it's this. I go, it's fun. It's a fun Wednesday night diversion for our fans.
Yeah.
It's doing well, but we've turned it into this marketing tool.
Yeah, right.
I use it strictly as a marketing tool, and we go on sale, and then I cut in and announce bands each week.
Right.
And as we're trying to figure out how to save, keep the money, the cost of these tours down, I didn't realize that we've sold it'll be 96,000 tickets today.
Wow.
When I get my counts today, it will be over 96,000 tickets with actually $1,000 of hard advertising.
Wow.
So
repurposing a TV show in such a way to sort of provide that
and understanding that a TV show may not happen every year.
Yeah.
It looks like we're going to do season 3. I'm starting to have to understand, and that's where I feel like chasing technology all the time, understanding that YouTube culture. So where the YouTubers are right now and what's going on with them, I've rounded up 5 of them to bring on tour with me. Good. So I could shoot a backup TV show that I could air on YouTube, because we've actually got kids to leave the computers to watch TV once a week.
Yeah.
Now all we would do is take it back and repurpose it on TV.
And ask yourself, what is TV now?
Yeah.
What is TV? Is TV on TV anymore, or TV's on? TV's in your hand. It's when you want to watch it.
Repurposing mobile content, and and deciding we're going to. I've always wanted to do a webcast, but then everyone said, well, who's going to pay for the webcast? And, sponsors or whatever. And so sometimes you just have to go do it. And I committed to doing a webcast of our first show this year.
Yeah, great.
And we're going to shoot it. We're going to edit it into 100 little pieces and distribute it out. And I think that'll be all we'll have to do to market the tour this summer.
Yeah, that'll establish it. Yeah. So you see the role of technology as obviously integral to what you're doing, but. So much of music tech now, and this is an axe that I have to grind. So much of music tech stands on the back of an artist, and it seems like nothing you've ever done has been standing on the back of the artist. It's always brought value to the artist. Yeah. And I think that you must have feelings about that. You must see that that's part of how you're made up.
It's kind of the only way I know how to do it. Yeah. It's dealing with it. For me, I get the artist during the greatest time, that 8 weeks when we're out there, there's big crowds, they're playing for a lot of people. And then it's like, how do I keep their careers going? Yeah. So, I'm very vested in now the labels. The only record label that I do business with on a regular basis that existed 20 years ago was Epitaph.
Right.
Every other label we're working with started on at a table at Warped Tour, basically, with a band and an idea. So I feel vested in as much as we can do to help those artists.
Right.
And that's why you'll see sometimes bands on my tour come 2-3 years in a row, that if I'm feeling I'm investing in their career, because my whole goal is to develop new headliners and help them go on, and hopefully build up a little bit of it, and you can't judge it, and you can't hold it against it. Hopefully once in a while they'll come back and play with you and be part of what you do.
Right. I mean, what, Pennywise done like 8?
Yeah, anyway, Less Than Jake, but it's some of these other acts, that more recently, it took us 3 summers with Paramore.
Right.
From the smallest stage to the largest stage.
Right.
There's an act right now, Echo Smith, that I saw a little spark in them, and it was my big fight. It was almost the final fight with Warner Brothers. Right. Because I said I want them to play next summer so I could work with them and develop them alongside you guys. Right. And someone told me they're going to be too big for your tour, an agent, a manager, and the label and everything. Not the manager, the label. And I finally had to call that label, and it was a major label, and say, if we don't work together this summer, I will never help you develop a band again.
Right.
because I can go help my friends and help them.
Yeah, yeah. So why don't we take that as the next kind of phase of the conversation, talk about artist development.
Yeah.
And like, you know, when you talk about artist development, let's break that down a little bit for these people. You know, what do you see as artist development? Where does it begin? What is the process, and how can you influence?
Well, you know, we went through that phase where artist development used to be like how many likes you had on
Facebook.
No, before Facebook.
Oh, MySpace.
MySpace.
Yeah. Oh my God.
How many likes you had on MySpace? And I remember for a moment there, everyone was signing, like people were getting signed, you know, sight unseen.
Yeah.
The old artist development, you went out and see all the bands, you'd go see them play live, you decide if you could do a show, and it went to MySpace, and then we lost, you know, that was, thank goodness that went away. A bunch of bands were signed off of that, and their career, nothing happened with them. So I think we're back in a time where, you know, the first spark of artist development now is you're going to learn from, most likely, fans, letting you know, people in communities, the people of these bands, letting you know. You can start, you know, you can start finding things out more online. And
that can be fairly small. I mean, that can be a couple thousand people, right?
Yeah, that's all it really takes. And you want to make sure, you know, and then you still want to get on a plane and go down and see that band, or go send someone to see that band. But I think we're back in a phase where, you know, understanding that you're going to put out a couple singles, an EP, you're working up to that album, that record. I think we're back in a period where we can give bands time. The deals are more reasonable. There are more partnerships with the bands that on at least the indie level, people are not expecting that first record to come out of the box, and you know, you're making deals that make sense at 3,000 units or X amount of singles, and then everyone starts sharing in the money. And it's funny, and you know, for me, it's that we could find and work for many years, but I think we're in a good time. I was down to a point 4 or 5 years ago where I couldn't even fill up a main stage with headliners, like bands that I felt could be on that main stage. Wow. We had gone through this period of transition, and I was transitioning the tour, understanding that I had to lock into this demo of 13 and 19 for Warped, because we have so many great festivals now, but I always say at 19 to 24, that's the period everyone's spending their money, student loan money, to go to festivals. You know, you want to go. They're expensive, EDC and all that. So I got 13 to 19-year-olds as an entry-level festival. And then as I'm relaunching these artists, these bands like The Used and Yellow Card, I think I get a lot of people that have maybe gone through college, they're paying back their student loans, they still want to go to music festivals, but now it's really unaffordable because that's a tough period of time financially. But you can afford to go to the Warped Tour for $40. So I can go back in and work with Census Fail and Amberlin and help, and I'm actually working on some reunions now of bands. And say, come do them on Warped Tour, because I can put 6 or 7 of you there, and for the price of one House of Blues ticket, people can come back and enjoy Warped Tour. So I have 2 demos, so I'm always adjusting the demos on where I'm working. So it's at 13 to 19 and then 24 to 27-year-olds. So, you know, you want to come down, and bands always tell me they want to do a 10-year reunion tour, or the 10-year anniversary tour, and I say it's the worst time to be on the road, because most people get turned on to you when you're 15, and at 25, it's the hardest time to afford to go out for entertainment.
It's great that you know that, but that brought me to one of my next points, which is to talk to you about your pricing philosophy. You know, obviously prices are a huge issue. You know, the general economy and I don't know if you believe that the general economy impacts attendances and things like that. You know, what is first of all, is there an aspect of the business that you see as recession-proof?
I think people want to be entertained. I don't think I think, you know, the price of that, there is a price break point, that threshold, and you give people. So we went back, going back when there was the economic recession. That's where I implemented my buy early, pay less, buy later, pay more. So we go on sale, and now a lot of people are using that tiered, buy early, you know, kind of thing. But we went into this tiered thing where a true fan of Warped Tour, the trust in the brand, could start buying a ticket in December. And a lot of them were saying they couldn't get anything else for Christmas. They wanted a Warped Tour ticket. So we went out with our cheapest tickets, not announcing bands. And we would put up tickets for $19.
So the true believers get their
true believers get them $19, $3 service charge early on. We threw in the Warped Tour comp, so for maybe $25 all in, there was your Christmas present for this fan. And then as we roll out more and more bands, people would start, you know, the price goes up. I had to make a really, you know, tough decision a couple weeks ago. It's hard. You're always battling Ticketmaster. Somehow Ticketmaster and the ticket fees crept up. They went up, you know, went up from $6 I was always fighting to 7.
Yeah.
And now they're 10.
Yeah.
And we're still the lowest.
Well, and I was going to talk to you about that.
You know, so when you're going out and paying a $42 now, about for a Warped Tour ticket right now, because all the cheap tickets have sold out.
Yep.
You know, we're settling.
Still a pretty good price for a festival.
We're settling on 28 of it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm a zero guarantee tour.
Yeah.
I don't get a guarantee to be there.
Right.
I'm a percentage of the door, so we're just an ultimate club tour.
Right.
Just like a band, you guys in bands, you're getting a portion of the doors.
Yep.
I've always believed in my product enough that we will take part of the door.
But you understand what he's saying, that on $42 that you pay, he is getting 28.
A portion of 28.
A portion of $28, right? A split on 28,
tour.
right?
So to make Warped Tour work, it's only made money on tickets 1 year.
Wow.
It was that random year that I, booked Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance, and all of a sudden radio started playing everyone until they realized they couldn't get beer money from them.
Yeah.
So they dropped all that format of radio. That was the only year we did tickets. Everything else we've ever done comes from those partners and sponsors out on tour.
Right.
So about a week and a half ago, and it's a really tough market for sponsors and partners right now because there are so many festivals. Everyone's going after a finite pool of money.
Yeah.
They say there's only going to be a 1.5% increase in money for music this year, event sponsor. Think how many more festivals there are.
Yeah.
So I had to go to a point last week. I hated it. I hated doing it, but I sat there on a week and I go, we're going to come up about $1 million short this year on this tour. Right. Because we're exhausting every resource.
Right.
There's a weird brand time where there's lazy brand managers.
Yep.
So we're investing to get to CEOs, because if I can get in front of a CEO, we usually can get a good rapport.
Right.
So I had to go back in even after we've priced the tickets and raise them $1 in some markets and $2.
Wow.
To try to make up some of the shortfall this summer.
Yeah.
And Live Nation was like, Kevin, why don't you just raise them $5? You're still cheaper. I go, no, you know what?
Yeah.
I feel bad enough raising them $1 and $2 on people.
Yeah. They're the devil on your shoulder.
But they're the ones. Go ahead, raise them. And raise them. And we ended up a week ago Monday having to chase some of the price formats $1 or $2 on some cities.
Right.
But we're still the cheapest ones on the road.
Well, and that was part of what I wanted to talk to you about. You're building relationships with fans. When we talk about brand in this program, we talk about brand equaling the word trust. So Warped means something to people. They trust you not to be ripping them off, not to be just reaching into their wallets and that's all you care about. Then they're subject to the rest of the business, right? So these are your people. Right. That are then subject to these fees and add-ons and the lousy expensive food and the lousy expensive drinks and everything else at certain venues. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's trying to engage people that are coming to a show, so maybe they'll take it out in their lives and start their businesses the same way on the format. Yeah. It's like when I had to go back in and I had to tell Live Nation that I was watching our audience, and when Live Nation was charging $4 for a bottle of water, I said, I cannot play your venues. Yeah. And I know some people would say $3 for a bottle of water is too much, but you go to, it's kind of when you're out, $3 bottle of water. I said, I want $3 water. Yeah. I want to give away free water. Yeah. And another idea, because kids are not, they're coming with finite money now to shows. Yeah. They don't have their parents' ATM cards to just throw in for more money.
Right.
We went to these meal plans.
Yeah.
So parents can pre-buy a meal plan, print it off, and give it to the kids, so at least they're going to eat, because people weren't eating.
Yeah.
They came to the show with $20, and mom saying, eat, get something to drink. 1, they weren't drinking.
Yeah.
2, they weren't eating. They were passing out.
Yeah.
So when I went and fought it, and to get $3 water at the venues in Amity, I pay money back. I'm paying for that right to have that.
I'm
subsidizing the concessionaires that $3 water. But you look at all the festivals, I think Buka was $3 water, and everyone's kind of getting that mindset. So we have to take care of the fans. We have to give them, better treatment.
Well, I'm gonna say again. I mean, you keep creating win-win at everything you've done, and this is something that, again, this is a school program. So I'm going to say, this lines up very neatly with what we talk about here all the time, which is all your deals being win-win. You're not winning at someone else's expense, right? So your meal plan idea is so win-win because you solved so many problems and generated a revenue stream.
And despite the word, I don't pull out an armored truck full of money every day.
Yeah.
I don't. I make a nice living in the music business. Better living than probably any punk kid in LA probably would have ever thought they could live. But I figure it's allowed me. Yeah. One, I haven't had to sell my company to Live Nation, to SFX. I've been able to survive. They all gave up trying to put me out of business.
Yeah.
They had plans to put me out of business. Yeah. There was meetings. All my friends worked at those companies, and they would say, "Oh my God, Kevin, we had another retreat where we were supposed to figure out how to put you out of business." Yeah. And none of the economic models worked.
Well, I've been there. I owned a little independent ticketing company for 7 years, and Ticketmaster used to call our clients. We had 200 clients. We'd do $2 million in ticketing every year, but we worked at the club level. Ticketmaster would call our clients and tell them we missed payroll. We were going out of business. They needed to sign up with Ticketmaster.
Yeah, the ticketing
predatory
business,
thing.
It is, and and now with good companies like Eventbrite and Ticketfly and some of these fees have been able to come down. But then again, you have to have these venues that aren't under contract.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, when Ticketmaster runs around, there's still that person. And I love when I'm at things and people go, "I just renewed my contract with Ticketmaster," and I go, "You just sold out your fans.
Yeah.
You just sold out your fans to be able to deliver a better experience to them." Right. I'm pretty vocal at these things. And I go, how much was your personal advance?
Yeah, exactly, because that's what was happening. It's marketing money.
Yeah.
They get, I was having clients bought away for $100,000 in marketing money. I had Don Holiday call me crying.
Most of this marketing money went to buying people's homes up in Sun Valley or something.
Of course.
But, I've always found that, and it's fight because I would wish we could, but, it's navigating and understanding, I fight a lot of battles, but I let a lot go.
Yeah.
My heavy metal tour is much more and I have people that deal with logo size and all. I don't deal with it. I believe in a get out, play, you'll rise to the top. And I've got enough people that'll come play my tours, and there's people that won't, and I understand the fans. There's going to be 10% of every hardcore group of people will not go to Warped Tour, but Warped Tour is not for you. Mayhem's not for you. It's for the 90% of the other people that just want to have a good day of music and maybe learn something or walk out with something.
Well, that's what psychographics are all about, right? Knowing who it's not for. Being excluding people is a way to know that you're including the right people.
Yeah, I always say people ask when you sold out, and I go, sold out. It's a broad question. Probably the first day I ever got into music, I guess I sold out or got paid $100 to stage manage. I guess I sold out. And I'm also, it's you just do what you do every day and try to put it behind you and keep some balance to your life.
Right. I don't know if you cognitively think about this kind of stuff, but you do understand how important innovation is, right? Do you feel pressure to continually innovate, or do you just innovate by solving problems?
Oh yeah, I sit in my office, and everyone's coming in, and I've just learned how to use Instagram. And then I've got 3 people already developed the new, most improved Instagram and how we're going to relayer it and things. It's also understanding your bandwidth in life. My brain can only so getting good young people around you and giving them that opportunity to shine. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you're lined up for a job now in the music business and you see a posting for a job, you're in line with a lot of people. The people that are getting jobs in this music business are walking into companies like mine and saying, "This is what you're doing. This is how your company will be better if you bring me in."
Right. They solve problems.
They see something with my company that I don't have fulfilled. They sit there. I've got a young guy named Dakota right now who he came in as an intern, and I just couldn't get rid of him. And he's not. And now all of a sudden he saw some niche things that I'm not able to keep up with, and he's just hanging in there. He's hanging in there. He's picked up a lot of speaking gigs because my agent wasn't doing well, and now he's like becoming a value part of the company, and and pretty soon I'm gonna have to give him health insurance. He's almost 6 months in, and he was an intern that I can't get rid of it. Now I'm like, he's turning into a top person, and people I think some of the people that aren't as innovative within the company are a little maybe envious of his role, but you've got to do that.
Well, if he's asserting himself, I mean, we talk in this program an awful lot about looking for a problem and or educating somebody about a problem that they have, telling somebody you have a problem that you might not know about, and I have a way of solving that problem.
Yeah, I've got one, and I usually have them come out and prove. This year it was someone had an idea of peer group, not security, but more like information. And she has this idea of a program. She's in school. So I'm letting her come out on the road and show me how it'll work on 6 shows.
Right, that's great.
How she's going to have, because she says kids might be, fear of sometimes with authority figures, but if they had people that were kind of trained, I said, well, let's go try it for 6 shows.
I see. So like peer groups that would
that'll be at the shows.
Deal in event security.
She's recruiting local people that are very knowledgeable on Warped
really
Tour. We also went to that thing last year where we went to Parents Get In Free.
Wow, yeah.
I saw the crowd and I just go, I always say there's no competition in life but yourself kind of trying to figure it out. Yeah. But I actually realized I want to get kids turned on to live music early on.
Yeah.
And live music to a lot of kids is one direction.
Right.
And, being a father, I was asked to take my daughter wanted to go see One Direction, my younger daughter, not the one that goes here because, but it was, she wanted to go see that. So I bought a ticket for the end of the summer. And I went, and I was the weird old dude in the 8th row. So when they were looking down, they were not looking at the kids. They're going, what's that old guy down there? But, I realized that I wanted to turn these kids on to live music.
Right.
And so I went to a Parents Get In Free program to try to get 12 and 13, 14-year-olds. And a lot of those parents probably came to Warped Tour potentially at the thing and get them into these bands earlier.
Right.
Because if I can get them to start supporting fearless bands and hopeless bands and buying and their label, they'll have a wider window to have these kids and develop those artists farther.
Yeah.
So maybe they can become lifelong artists and fans of those acts.
Yeah. That's great. Well, we have to give kids a chance to ask some questions, and I think we only have another 10
And if we
minutes.
run out of time, there's a lobby or something, and some of you guys want to talk, I'm cool to hang out.
We can hang
talk
out
to you guys
here,
after or wherever you guys want.
There's no curfew.
If anyone wants to. Okay.
Hang out right here.
All right.
So that's good. Anybody, questions for Kevin Lyman? Do we have where are people? Where are the microphones? Okay. Run. Alexis Fisher.
Yep. And Alexis, her story is really good. She was a girl who came out and volunteered on one of her festivals, and when she was younger, her dad drove her around to all the shows.
Yeah, that happened this past summer. I was just curious. I never realized, I know about Warped Tour, but I never saw really the sheer volume of what it is you do until I volunteered this summer. And I was just curious about your day-to-day. Like, what's your primary focus when you go out, when you're at the shows every day? Like, do you have a clear-cut set of daily tasks, or is it mostly just putting out fires as they come up?
No, I have such good people now that work for me, and that's what it really comes down to. You have great production managers, great stage managers, so they know their job each day. And on a normal day, that job they're just going to do that job. But I'm there to kind of, 1, judge the tempo of the show, 2, deal with the local venues a little bit, 3, but then also there when you have those big major problems. Nowadays, weather becomes a big issue on outdoor shows. So I'm the guy that has to be willing to make that call of keeping the show going, stopping the show, restarting the show. And then we've got a lot of people on the road that have never been out the road. So I realize I'm not the peer of the people on the road anymore. I'm either turned into kind of a mentor or disciplinarian. That's pretty much my whole role now. And on a great day, it's like a little family reunion in each city. Families come down, everyone's coming to visit. I have tent number 1, everyone's there, and it's a great time to catch up with people and, maybe drive my business in different ways. I've got involved and I'm a part owner of a beer company now, and that came together under a tent out on the Warped Tour, and I go out on beer sales. I'm having a great time.
Plug the beer company. What beer company?
It's called St. Archer Beer, and it's the fastest growing beer on the West Coast in the last 10 years, and we've only been around for a year. And it's all driven by surfers, skaters, music guys. So it's just taking the knowledge of what I've done through music and now driving, another type of business.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes. Nicole.
Hi. How did you go about beginning to first get these big nonprofits such as PETA and Skate for Cancer to kind of join in, and how, as far as them with all the free merchandise that they also have, getting that organized with your event?
Well, the nonprofit things, a lot of them weren't that big when they got involved with us. Right. PETA, there was PETA, and then PETA 2 was their youth outreach. And it was someone who I had met through music, was now working for that organization, and then they put that outreach on Warped Tour. Invisible Children, they just came in, and it was started with a table on one show one year. And just seeing, and we grant people now, to be out on the Warped Tour. We try to help build those nonprofits year round. Keep Abreast had been around for a long time. Shaney Joe, who ran that, I used to work on boarding for breast cancer and some snowboarding events with. So it's kind of identifying those, but also I've had to go back to some of those nonprofits that don't seem to grow from summer to summer and say, look, we have to make room for some new people to come out and give them a chance. So, there's been some hard calls the last few years with people and say, look, you just can't come out and take up the time on the Warped Tour. We need you to grow each year and come out, in a bigger way.
Well, that's interesting. You have to kind of light a fire under them to make sure that they're doing something.
We used to have vendors. It was clothing vendors on Warped Tour. About 3 years ago, I was walking around, and it was always like, it wasn't like, it was time-stamped. There was an opening period to become a vendor on Warped Tour. First one in, got the first choice to be out there. I started walking around and going, this isn't, maybe it's getting older, some of the things that were being sold out there. I was just like, wait a second. I was involved with the start of Hurley and Volcom and some of those companies. I need to start helping develop those new brands because there's bands and brands. So we went to this whole process of like business plans of why you're a vendor on Warped Tour. Huh. They have to submit what they're going to be doing out there, how their companies are going, if they're if they're doing retail online. Right. And now we have a much more selective process, and we're starting to see some of those companies, like Self-Made, and some of these companies now growing into legitimate companies that will be now carried. We just signed a 3-year deal with Journeys. So if I could be that bridge for these brands to start carrying, if Journeys will start carrying some of these brands because their association with Warped Tour, we've revitalized the culture that, this community.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
That's great, that's fascinating. Yeah. Another question? Hey, Spencer, come on down.
So with the compilation albums that you put out sometimes with so it's kind of a loaded question, but from like recording, do you record every show and then you're like, all right, which of these performances were gold? Or do you have like venues where you have that set up ahead of time?
Well, I don't know if the compilations are live recordings.
Yeah, they're not live.
Compilations
not live
are studio
recordings. Okay, I've listened to some clearly not extremely.
But there is something to talk about there. The Rhapsody thing, the thing you guys do with Rhapsody.
Yeah, we do some live sessions. They're usually selected shows because then we'll bring in the gear. Yeah. We'll do like an off on ADAT on some stages, and then and we'll come in and record, and then we'll do these live, the live series. Usually it's partnered with like a Rhapsody or someone. We're working on a new thing. We're launching an iAdobe radio station this year. I just did all the inserts for that down at South by Southwest, so we're going to probably have some live performances from Warped with that. It's an ever-evolving thing. We don't do every show, though.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, my follow-up was going to be about licensing and getting people to agree. If it's not live shows, I guess
it's new. Since we're going to stream this show now, we write some language into the contracts about what we can and can't do. Everyone strikes it out of their contract. Then I have to pretty much go back in and call the label presidents or my people over there and say, look, this is going to be a great tool to develop your artists, which they usually get. Yeah. But if you're just dealing with a straight publisher, they've got a rate book. They don't care about really developing artists. They just care about getting return.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
There's always a way to make a deal. Yeah. Yes. Question.
You mentioned that too many people don't know how to run festivals. So what would you say is the differentiating factor between those who know how to run festivals and those who don't?
Well, I think, I think there's a great example of how not to run a festival. Right now, if you guys want to, research, like, I thought the guys over at Hookah do a good job. Like, I was kind of, we were involved, but observing on how they're doing it. They're evolving their festival, the Bonnaroos and that. But there was a group that tried to do a festival last year called Bottle Rock. On the West Coast. I don't want to go too deep into it, but they did everything. It's something to research if you want to see what went wrong with the festival. They called me to consult on it, and I was like, I think I'm too honest to be a consultant. I think a lot of time people hire consultants to tell them exactly what they want to hear.
Yeah, tell them.
And I told them exactly what I would not do, like based on Napa being the place, one-lane roads, developing relationships with communities, all the things that a good festival does. Because, there was a guy in the background just yelling that I'm going to have Kings of Leon and Zach Brown and I forget who, someone else. Yeah. And I said, that sounds like a disaster. Just from my 20-minute call with them, that sounds like a disaster. And it was a huge disaster. Yeah. They've pissed up. Now, some guys came in and bought the name. I don't know why they bought the name and just didn't start another festival, because it's a tainted brand. But read about Bottle Rock Festival, and they've pissed off everyone. They owe $5.5 million out there.
Right.
But some guys said they're coming in and trying to do it again. And I think it's really interesting how all these new festivals are taking ticket money from fans without a lineup. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
as a new festival, how do you do that?
I think that's bad. I think, Coachella has built their brand.
Yeah.
70% of the people going to Coachella are going to watch the sunset.
Right.
And just be part of the experience. But now you've got these guys taking fans' money, and they're not delivering, they haven't sold.
They're not delivering an experience.
And who knows what they're delivering.
Yeah.
But everyone thinks that festivals are easy, and they're not. They're really tricky. We're in a point of saturation in America on festivals.
Right. Right.
There will be a weeding out this year, and you'll see the best ones go on.
Right.
So if you guys are starting to work at festivals, try to get at least 50% of your money up front. I mean, trust me, the bands, if you're a new festival producer, the bands are getting paid 100% up front.
Yeah.
And the people getting burned are the production companies and the production people. So everyone's gotten to this point. And it puts a lot of pressure on the producer because, but you have to earn your stripes some way. That's a nice thing with Warped Tour. I have no deposits. I give some money to my production companies to get the gas to get to the first show. But we have that they know they're going to get paid by me.
Yeah. Well, it's again, it's trust.
Yeah.
It's always going to be about trust.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else before we're done? Well, we are up against it. Please join me in thanking Kevin Lyman.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, man.